Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not even sure whether we're live yet, though.
Oh, really?
We are live.
we are
Okay.
live.
Well, thank you, Eugene. I'm having a little bit of
A
difficulty.
little JS boss
yeah.
to start the morning.
Thank you. That was wonderful. This is welcome to the feed. We really stepped up our game today. We have Eugene. He's here to tell us about cellos and Stone Church arts and everything. And Marty's here.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting follow through. Last week, Mike and I kind of did an improv show. We didn't have a guest. And one of the things we talked about is, I'm sure you've seen the hashtag I love Bellows Falls.
Yeah.
And so that created some chatter on Facebook. And there was this one feed that kind of came through that was kind of negative towards Bellows Falls. And it was kind of, so our take was, I was quoting someone that said that you get out of a town what you put into a town. And so it's kind of negative. And I think that while it was saying that, it was in light of an MSN publication that said that Bellows Falls was one of the poorest towns in Vermont. So it seems very exciting to me that I think we're one of the richest towns in the arts. For a small town, the amount of arts that we have, the amount of between print media and music, and I think we're rich in art. So thank you for coming on today, because I think it kind of proves our point from last week that Bellows Falls truly is a town that is rich in many things.
Yeah,
and the arts is one of them.
I couldn't agree more. And it might be interesting for you to know that the workshops that we host at the Stone Church in the summertime, we have participants coming from all over the world to these things. And people rave about Bellows Falls. They love coming to Bellows Falls. They love walking down to the square and shopping and eating locally, and they love playing in the church, of course. So yeah, it's so interesting to see the take of somebody who's never been here before.
Yeah,
very
I think-
favorably.
Yes. Well, I'm often struck by people I talk to who live here now, and you say, well, why did you come here? And they're often, they came for something. And then they looked around and they were like, oh, this is really a
But
nice
they
place
stayed
to
for
be.
something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I was, Robert McBride the other day say he came for a weekend and bought a house.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, oh, yeah, it's just like, yeah, this is the place to stay.
Yeah.
Well, Eugene, thank you for coming on. Tell us a little
pleasure.
bit about yourself, your journey here. How did you get to Bellows Falls?
Well, you know, it was really the cello that brought me here in a way, because I remember around in the year 2000 or so, I just came to Bellows Falls for no good reason and just went for a walk around the town and walked up to the Stone Church, and the door was wide open, which is, I love that when churches have wide open doors, and walked in there and saw this absolutely stunning interior. You know, the architecture is so beautiful, and stained glass windows, etc. And then I noticed this big piano at the front. And I thought, well, that's probably some relic that's been there for 50 years. It's probably a piece of junk. And it's a 9-foot concert grind Steinway piano. You know, it's a beautiful concert instrument. And so I just happened to be able to make friends with people at the church, because I really wanted to try my cello in the church. And so I brought my cello back. It sounded amazing in there. And so I arranged to do some recording in the church, and ended up recording one of my first Vermont-produced CDs there. It's a CD called In the Shade of Angels. And just fell in love with the place and the community, and that was it. That was in the year 2000.
Wow.
And since then, I moved here to Vermont, to Bellows Falls, about 4 years ago. I started doing my workshops here, I would say, 6 years ago in the summertime. I teach in Boston during the year at the Berklee College of Music, so I'm commuting back and forth a lot during the year, but in the summertime I really don't have to go anywhere, so I just stay here in Vermont, which is so wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. It's an amazing place to be in the summer.
It is, and you know, I think for a lot of human beings, and of course for artists too, just to be close to nature is hugely inspiring. To be around all this green and the freshness and the beautiful air and the safe communities is something that's just been great for my family, and I think really good for my music too.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have a lot of the elements. You have the mountains. We're between the
Yeah.
mountains. There's a river, so there's water. I would assume those are all things that can inspire
Yeah,
art, inspire creativity.
yeah. The water's a big deal. I love being close to the
Yeah,
water.
that's a big thing for me too. I
Yeah.
personally prefer the ocean, but I'm thankful that the river's there. I'm thankful that we're not a landlocked town.
Yeah, it's true.
It's great. So, for people who don't know, Eugene Friesen is a Grammy Award-winning artist who taught at Berkeley. You've been everywhere, right? Pretty much, and played
Yeah.
with quite a few different
6 of
groups.
the 7 continents. Still waiting for that Antarctica tour to come through, but
You're working on that one?
yeah.
It's on your bucket list?
But yeah, I mean, and I'd like to travel more in Africa because so much of music, the influential music in pop music and in folk music comes from Africa. So visiting the kind of homeland of a lot of the world's music is high on my bucket list. But so far, I've only made it to Egypt. I really love that, but there's still a whole lot. Africa is a huge storehouse of music, as you know.
Yes, and the cello, it seems to be coming to its own. I wouldn't say coming to its own because it's been around for
Yeah.
Hundreds
No,
of
but
years.
you're right,
but
though.
it seems in the last
Having a
year or so,
renaissance.
Yeah.
it's really
You
becoming
see it
popular.
more and more and more
Yeah,
and more.
for those of
yeah.
you who watched the royal wedding, it was featured the I can't remember his name, Sekou Khanum Mason who's part of a musical family. He did 3 different Bach numbers during the royal wedding, and he was solo, and he was this young guy it was really
Yeah,
inspiring.
yeah,
it's pretty
that's so
cool.
good. Yeah, the cello just has this amazing versatility. It can I just
Yeah, please.
do
Do some.
few riffs here? I mean, one of the things is the range of the instrument because it's got these low notes, which are so satisfying. And if you should get a cello really, because when you pull a bow across that string, it vibrates your whole
does.
skeleton.
Really?
So there's something
Really?
like incredibly therapeutic or addictive or something about just being in the vibe, of the cello. But then, the strings are all different thickness, so that the higher strings can go quite high.
That's so
You know.
fascinating.
Yeah, so I mean, it's got all that range, and then with the bow, of course, you can really sustain the note. And they say that the cello is the closest instrument to the human voice, which I think is so true. And there's something about the sound of the cello, I think, that does kind of vibrate your frame in that way, and it can unlock your emotions
I
sometimes
was
too.
just going to say that there was an emotion for me attached to each one of those notes.
Yeah.
The very first one, the deep note, was like when you're watching a movie and it's coming to like a climax or something. Oftentimes that kind of yeah, that's so funny. So that's cool. That's so cool.
But then it also, when you pluck the strings this way, it has that kind of a harp-like quality too. So you can really accompany yourself, and some of my students do that. They sing and make up their own songs, and use the cello instead of a guitar to accompany
Right,
themselves.
yeah.
And that seems to be happening more and more and more. And stylistically, I always say that you are what you eat. So what you like to listen to tends to come out when you're just playing, from your heart. If you like listening to the blues, of course, when you play, it's going to sound
Sound like the
bluesy.
blues, yeah. That's just great.
See, that's what I find fascinating. The one time I saw you play at a benefit up in Springfield is that I think when people think of the cello, they think of strictly classical and kind of stuffy perhaps. But you seem to bring it, and I think that's the focus of your workshop maybe too. You're bringing it into all the, it's so versatile in many different genres of music, like jazz or
yeah.
blues or African music.
Yeah.
You can bring in a lot of, and that's, it's kind of, I don't know, I just find it fascinating.
Well, and you're right. I think that is why people are coming to these workshops from all over, because it's a time now when those of us who are classically trained, as I was, are really trying, wanting to reach out, create new repertoire, find new audiences. And what that often means is to build collaborations with unusual kind of couplings. And having the skills to do that is not something that we're given as classical players. At least I was really trained to use my eyes so much. I became a really good reader of sheet music. So I can sit down and look at a piece of sheet music, and within a very short period of time, I can kind of go sell that music. In other words, I could go on stage and play it, and it would sound like a professional performance of that piece. The next day I will have no memory of what I did, at all.
Yeah.
And that's just, I think, part of the kind of circus trick that we learn as classical players, to be able to very, very quickly take something that's notated and turn it into music. But what we're not given is permission to really play with the elements of music. Like when I gave my children art supplies, for example, they would open it up, and of course they would, we'd instruct them where to put their fingers or their brushes and stuff like that. But they wanted to put it not only on the paper, but also on their clothes and on your clothes and on the walls. And they wanted to taste it, to literally put it in their mouth. And I think we classical players are never really given the permission to really play with the elements of music in that way. So we miss that kind of creative building block stage. A lot of us are taught exactly how we should do things, and of course we're deathly afraid of playing a wrong note or making an ugly sound, especially in front of people. So,
or even knowing what a wrong note or ugly sound is. I mean, because that's defined by your training.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's great to get into a forum where you can really use your instrument in a very casual way and in a conversational way. So you can really just have musical conversations that are not about right notes or wrong notes, but really just about responding authentically on your instrument.
Right.
And that's what we're doing up there at the church.
Yeah.
Isn't that more the, and I'm not a real jazz aficionado, but isn't that more, from what I've seen when I've gone to jazz, is it seems like as you'll start, a song starts like a known song, but then each musician goes with how they feel with that, with their little solo piece. Is that more what you're finding with the cello now and with collaborations? I think you and Mike were talking before the show, which is oftentimes when we have our best conversations.
It's like
It warms us up, and so I try to bring those conversations back about seeing musicians that were kind of almost like call and responding to one another and having that total conversation. I think you used the term conversation. So really getting outside the constraints of any one style, like classical style or whatever.
But it sounds a lot like that's what your workshop is. I was reading the description of what people would get out of your workshop, and you really are looking at improvisational styling, right? Like working through thorny chords. I like that turn of phrase.
Right.
What is a thorny chord?
Oh gosh, there's tons of them.
Oh, really?
I mean, and part of it is, and that's kind of down the line for us classically trained players, is being able to really identify intellectual with what we're hearing. So if some piano player over there was playing one of those thorny chords, I could say, oh, that's a dominant seventh. It's a C7, but it has a flat 9 in it and a sharp 5. That's a thorny chord. And there are nicknames for those kind of sounds that you develop. And of course, there are scales that will work over that. And eventually, your fingers just kind of have a sense of where to go, just like you can find any room in your house in the dark sometimes. But it takes time to get there.
Yes.
And for us classical players, part of it is just the kind of I want to use the word inhibition. It's really just feeling so strongly that you don't know what's going to happen, and that is unnerving. So part of it is making friends with not knowing what's going to happen, and that can be really hard for people.
Exactly. Well, and I guess that would be true in life too.
Yeah,
Create stress if you don't
It's
know
like
what's
you have to take a
if you
leap
don't
of
know what's
faith.
gonna happen.
Exactly. There's all these great analogs for how to live your life in there.
Great.
Do you find it more freeing as a musician to be able to do that? And do you see that with your students, like when they come out of that constraint, that classically trained constraint, and they discover, do you think that they bring themselves to a different level of musical
No
ability?
question. Yeah, and it's really why I've been doing this for such a long time, is because I know what that felt like for me to make that transition, and then to watch other people make that transition is so fun, and it happens consistently during the summer with people who come here. And people come with all different levels. There are some players who come to Bellows Falls, who have really never improvised before and haven't played a note that hasn't been written down in front of them. And some who are already well on that path. And at every level that you are, there's always, it's good to have a guide and to let you know what the next level is and give you some tips for going there.
Well, another conversation that we had just prior to is that you said you were working with a friend, colleague, and you were working on your bowing hand, and to me that was just fascinating because I would have thought that that's still all done.
I know, I would have too.
You've been doing it for so long, That's like, but now you're working on
right.
new techniques.
I just had noticed something in my hand that I thought could be improved, and my sweetheart Liz, her father is a wonderful cellist, and we were there on Mother's Day, and I just said, Bruce, can I talk to you for a minute about the bow hand? So we went into his studio and sat with our cellos, and he really gave me some interesting insights about how it feels under his hand when he's pulling the bow back and forth in a certain way. And so I've been practicing that the last week or so, and I'm starting to see some results from that.
Can you show us
No.
something? No.
I mean, it's so internal,
Oh, really? It's more of a feel?
It's a total feel thing, and his point was that each finger of the bow has a function in the bow hand. And what that helped me to develop a sensitivity for is just what the role of these two fingers are more in my bow changes. That there's a flexibility and a fluidity in the bow change that I could talk about for the rest of this show and next week's show too. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'll see you there. But it reminds me, like one of my longtime colleagues, Howard Levy, is a fantastic harmonica player, and he does things on the harmonica that have never been done before. He can play a little diatonic harmonica, like you buy at the dime store, if they have dime stores anymore, dollar store, and he can play the notes in between. He can play the black notes, so to speak.
Really?
So that it's a technique that he developed, but how do you teach that? Because you can't see what's going on in his mouth. So he had an X-ray film done of his, while he's doing this.
Of what's happening.
A video,
Interesting.
an X-ray video of how his tongue is moving and his mouth changes shape. Anyway, it's like that here too. It's hard
like
to describe.
The whole thing. We'll have to X-ray your hand.
Yeah,
next
really.
That'll be
we're
next
doing
time's
this.
show.
Yeah,
We have
let's
cameras
get
here,
Alex
too.
on
Yeah,
that. I mean,
Alex.
how tough could it be?
X-ray cameras, X-ray cameras. So you have some people collaborating with you at the workshop. That's why we have some pictures back here. And then you're going to do a concert.
Yes.
So for
in
those
fact,
of us in the audience that don't actually have a cello at home and can't come to the workshops, they can come to your creative cello concert.
we do each of the 3 workshops is from Thursday night until Sunday morning. And on Friday night, we have our faculty concert, and those have been well supported by kind of a broader community. People come from Keene, Brattleboro, Rutland, and all around to those concerts. But then on Saturday night, we have a concert that features the participants, some of whom are very accomplished, and those are free. So we really want to invite everybody to come to those. And the other thing that we do is we've offered free tickets to students in Bellows Falls and Walpole. So you can come just with your student ID, get in for free, and bring your family for free too.
Wow,
That's
that's
So
great.
yeah, because we're doing these beautiful, beautiful concerts, and we can always squeeze a few more people in. So
Yeah.
we really want to make that accessible.
And I think they're kind of, again, even myself, who's fairly aware of what's going on, because we
We
work
do
to
this show
promote it.
every
We
week,
do
and
the show, we have
try
to.
to figure out what's going on.
Is it still, I think it's one of those kind of hidden gems in town. I know everybody knows where the Stone Church is. It's the Emmanuel Episcopal Church that's kind of behind the middle school, behind just off of School Street. And but even I didn't know until I started researching for today how much goes on there. Like in the winter, I didn't know anything about which I thought sounded quite amazing. Your candlelight.
Yeah, that's
Oh
Candlelight
yeah, we
concert.
started that this year. It was really beautiful. Yeah, yeah. And let me tell you about my duo partner here, Joel Martin. And we have a new CD. Actually, we just finished it yesterday. It's called A Perfect Sunday, and we're going to be doing our CD release right here in Bellows Falls on June 22nd.
Oh,
Nice.
So that's the first concert of our summer season at the Stone Church, and that's going to feature Joel and myself doing stuff from our new CD, and also Jacob Zakelli from Los Angeles, who just started. You know, he went off the classical cliff about 15 years ago, and has turned into a really interesting and dynamic modern jazz cellist. So, and he's played with Rush. He's toured with other big rock people.
Yeah.
And he does stuff on the cello that nobody does. Yeah.
And
so
then
he's
he'll be
coming.
there on the 22nd also.
Mhm,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
So June
I am marking my
22nd.
calendar.
Yeah.
And in addition, we've got a couple of accomplished participants who are coming. My former student, Marta Roma, is coming from Barcelona, and she sings. She has a strap for her cello so she can stand up and dance and sing and accompany herself on the cello. It's
Yes.
really something. She'll be performing that weekend. And then Louise King, who's coming from Australia, who's also an accomplished improviser and a classical player and an improviser. So yeah,
Great.
it should be a fun gathering.
Yeah. And a good start to the summer. Huh? 'Cause,
Indeed.
yeah, you'll be doing workshops all summer then?
There are three. There's
Yeah.
one in June, the Creative Cello Workshop. And then in July, we're doing one called Gypsy Jazz and Brazilian
Oh,
with
wow.
wonderful
I had
gypsy.
that written down because that intrigued me.
Yeah, Jason Anik, great gypsy jazz violinist. You know, if you know names like Stefan Grappelli,
Yeah.
Django Reinhardt,
Yeah.
you know, that's a repertoire of music that is so
Just
irresistible.
amazing. Yeah.
It's got a great feel and great swing. And music like that is actually a great entry place for us classical players to go
Really?
from classical repertoire into more kind of swinging
Yeah.
improvisational repertoire.
Because those guys were the jazz club of Paris.
Exactly, the
Like,
hot club
yeah.
of France.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
It is
and
amazing.
like Reinhardt, he had something with his hand too that he played.
Yeah, he actually lost the use of two of his fingers as a young man, and still developed to be
Yeah,
one
to
of
be
the
the
fastest guitarists ever.
Yeah,
with three
incredible stuff.
fingers. Yeah.
So that's going to be in July, the Gypsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
And tickets for, I just wanted to reiterate, so people, I know because we're running out of time and I know you're not seeing the clock.
I am.
Okay. Just so people can know where to find tickets. Tickets are available at Village Square Booksellers. And then can they get them through the church and online? It seemed like you could
Yeah,
get
I
them
think
online.
there's
There's,
online
I think we have
site.
the website up is stonechurchart.org.
Oh, great.
All one word.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, check that out. Hoping that'll come up.
There
Here
it
comes
goes.
our timer. And do you want to play us out?
Oh, sure.
That'd
And
be
thank you.
great.
Thank you
Like
so
something
much.
so
elegant
much.
or something bluesy.
Something
Whatever
funky.
you feel like playing. But